So today I'm going to show you how to make a mushroom bourguignon. I'm going to start with some lovely dried porcini, which will need rehydrating. So I'm going to get some boiling water. I'm going to pour over enough so that they can rehydrate. They can then set aside over here with all these other mushrooms and just rehydrate nicely. The next thing I'm going to do is prepare some shallots. To take the skin off, what we need to do is put them into a pan and pour over some boiling water. Just enough to cover. We're going to bring them to a boil and let them simmer for 2 minutes. The reason to do this is to soften the skins and make it easier to peel. So they've been simmering a couple of minutes. I am going to go and strain them. So here we've got my cooked shallots. They're not really cooked, but the skins have been allowed to soften. I'll show you how to peel them. Take the top off and just peel back that soft skin. It's a bit fiddly, but it's a lot easier doing it this way than it is when they're dry. And then when you get to the bottom, just cut that all off. But don't cut too much, you need to make sure that it stays whole. So last one. Yippee! So now we've peeled all those shallots. We're going to put some butter in a pan and we're going to season them. Turn the heat on. Give them a swirl. I'm going to sprinkle over a little bit of sugar just to help the caramelisation. Just shake them and swirl them, and that should cover them all nicely. What I'm going to do now is pop these in a hot oven. If you don't have a hot oven to put them in, don't worry, you can carry on, just caramelise them on the top here, just until they're nice and brown on the outside and a little bit, they're cooking on the inside about 5-10 minutes. Now I'm going to prepare my veg. I need to wash my carrots. Chop the ends off and the bottoms. Cut them in lengths. These are quite small, these carrots, hence the fact that I'm using 2. You've got nice small dice. Got my lengths, now I'm going to chop. Next, the leek. So cut that in half lengthways. And we're going to wash all that soil out. shake off the excess water. So I've washed my leeks. I'm going to cut off the dry outside layers. Pull those ones. Cut that. Keep that for stock. So now I'm going to slice these finely. Wash my board to stop the tears. So garlic next. Pull off the cloves. Cut off the end. Peel off the skin. We'll crush these into the bowl. I'm going to take my crusher and wash it. So next I'm going to prepare some parsley. I like to sprinkle parsley on the top of this before I serve it. And that leaves us with some stalks. So those stalks, rather than discard them, I'm going to put them in with these veg now. So remove the leaves from the stalks. Now I'm going to finely chop the stalks. Put them in the bowl with everything else. So I'm ready later. I'm just going to chop the leaves now. Rainbow technique, creating that arc. So I'm going to put these chopped leaves into this tub here. Be careful of your fingers. I'm going to wash my board and check on my onions. Oven gloves on, watch out for the heat. Now when you take these out, watch out because the handle's hot. So please make sure that you leave your oven gloves around the handle. Beautiful and caramelised and absolutely perfect. So I'm now going to chop an onion and add that to my mirepoix. Cut them in half and peel back the skin. Chop off the tips. Slice them and then chop. I'm going to wash my board to stop the tears. So now we're going to cook off our mirepoix. Put a little oil in the pan. Add the chopped veg. Turn on the heat to about a medium heat. Give them a stir and add some seasoning. Mix that around and then we'll put it on a lid so that they can sweat. We'll put them on a medium heat to sweat. Sweating means that the steam that comes out of the vegetable hits the roof of the lid and goes back in and helps the cooking process. And while they're doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to prep our mushrooms. start with the chestnuts. I'm going to look them over and see if there's any dirt and brush that off. Last one. Just going to dust the dust out of that bowl. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut these into bite-sized pieces. Cut off the dry ends of the stalks if necessary. So I think that's about a bite size. So I'm going to have a look at my sweating veg. When you lift up the lid, watch out for the steam and any water that's on the bottom of the lid. They're looking good. Stir them around. I'm going to cook them with the lid off now so they have a chance to caramelise. And on I go with the preparation of the mushrooms. I'm going to do the big portobellos next. So sometimes I try and get the baby portobellos and then I keep them whole, but today I've got these big ones. Amazing, aren't they? Again, dust off any dirt. Don't touch these. They're very fragile and they won't be dirty. It's just off the skin. And again, you want to cut these into bite-sized pieces. Give my veg a bit of a stir. And I'm going to prepare some small mushrooms. It is a good idea to do some of your mise en place or prep work while you've got things cooking. It saves time in the end. So shiitakes don't tend to be dirty, but I'll just check through. And these are clean, so that's good. If they are though, do the same thing, wipe them with a paper towel. You'll see here some are big and some are small, so I'll probably keep that one whole, but I'll chop them all to be roughly the same size. That's the last of the shiitakes. Now I'm going to stir my veg. I think they'll be pretty much ready. So look, you're going to scrape up those bits that are caramelising nicely on the bottom. I press quite hard. Those are definitely cooked and ready. So what I'm going to do is set them aside in a bowl so I can use this pan to cook the mushrooms. Make sure you scrape everything out of the bottom of the pan. So we'll pop those aside. I've got one more mushroom I just need to prepare, and these are the little button ones. So these need a clean. I'm just going to go and wash off my board. There's quite a lot of dirt on it. So now it's time to cook all these amazing mushrooms. I use butter, but if you prefer, you can use a coconut oil or an olive oil, it's no problem. But heat the butter to foaming, and we may have to do these in batches, so I'll do them a batch at a time, otherwise you won't get a lovely colour on them, and you need a lovely brown colour. Then a little salt and a little pepper. And in this days, a little more butter too. So my fond on the bottom here is too cooked. So what I'm going to do is go and show you how to deal with that. But I'm going to put the mushrooms that are caramelised into my veg. So look at that. You don't want to put that into your dish, so you want to get rid of it. So just watch out, because I'm going to use some cold water. Tip it out. Grab a scouring pad. And scrape it all out. Then you've got a lovely clean pan to start again with. So I've cleaned my pan, and now what I'm going to do is put some more butter in and carry on cooking the mushrooms. Turn on the heat. So the butter's now foaming. I'm going to add my mushrooms. Some pepper. Sprinkle of salt. So again, we want these to caramelise on the outside, but not cook all the way through. So much water in mushrooms, get a lot of evaporation. But these look pretty good. Scrape up the fond, and then we'll put these with the veg. I'm going to deglaze this pan with a little red wine. Just want to scrape up all those yummy bits from the bottom there, all that fond, before we do our next batch. So there we go, done all the mushrooms. I'm just going to deglaze this pan. Scrape up all the fond and then pour it over the mushrooms. So here are my shallots. Still got the oven gloves wrapped around that handle because I don't want to burn myself. But I know that they're cold, so I'm just going to remove them. So these are all cooked and delicious. But what I want to do is I want to tip those into the pan with all the other vegetables, but I want to deglaze this pan too. Because we want all that delicious fond. So heat it up. Pour in the rest of the wine. As it begins to warm, it'll loosen up that fond. When alcohol comes to a boil, it removes the alcoholic content. So one final thing we need to do is deal with those wonderful dried porcinis which have now had time to rehydrate. So I've got a really lovely fine mesh sieve here. If you don't have a fine mesh sieve, use a sheet of muslin or a piece of kitchen roll and just pour the juices into that bowl. Then what you want to do is you want to chop these up nice and fine. So these are now really nicely finely chopped. I'm going to put these with the other mushrooms. So we've got all our veggies in here. I'm going to put them back in that pan. Bring it to a simmer. Add a bay leaf and a couple of sprigs of thyme. Going to add some tomato paste. Stir that in. Time now to put in the stock. Crumble in a cube, or if you have your own stock, vegetable stock, do use that. And pour in the water. Do all a stir around. And then we'll let that cook for 10 to 15 minutes. So bring it to a boil and then turn it down to a simmer. Or if you prefer, you can put it into your Aga or your oven to cook for the last few moments. So my mushrooms went into the oven and they're now ready, so I'm going to get them out. Oven gloves at the ready. Around the handle. Oh, look at that. I'm going to make sure I put those oven gloves around the handle like that so I don't touch it by mistake. Shut the door. Let's give it a taste. Give it a cool. Yum. I'm just going to check the thickness of the sauce, and that seems good to me. If it wasn't thick enough, then I would make a slurry out of corn flour and water and just pour that in to thicken it over a simmer. That sauce seems thick enough to me. Okay, so we're going to put this in our serving bowl. Be careful when you pour it so it doesn't splatter. Scrape out all those goodies. And at this stage I will just take out my thyme stalk. And there's one last thing to put on it, which is that chopped parsley. And here we have delicious mushroom bourguignon, which would taste amazing with mashed potatoes or celeriac puree or maybe a cauliflower mash and some green beans, or simply with some warm bread.